Hello, all you beautiful people, and welcome to The Wire. First, before we get into tonight's news, as I said yesterday, guys, we're going to keep posting until this channel goes down. And as I showed you all yesterday, it doesn't look like it's going to be much longer. And that's sad. That's really sad, because this has been an outlet for us to really try and understand the times at hand and share the truth and share the gospel. And you know, I want to share this with you. A very influential individual, my grandfather, he just recently passed, who happened to be very influential in my life with coming to know Christ. And I felt led to share this with everyone for one reason. We can never forget the absolute amazing grace that is Jesus Christ, that comes through faith in a relationship with Jesus Christ. We were all once lost, but now we are found. Let's get into tonight's news. The Communist New World Order. The USA will be replaced on the world stage, says the UN chief. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres warned America that if the USA disengages from international issues, the USA will be replaced on the world stage. This country, in total about 300 and some million people, pretty much funds how much of this entire world? Whether we agree to it or not, you can't exactly replace the United States. China is trying, and of course that is the goal, and I'll get into that in just a second here. The socialist, Antonio Guterres, is a socialist. He identifies actually as a socialist. Guterres stated that the U.S.'s proposed budget cuts would create an unsolvable problem to the management of the UN, and that the U.S. would likely be replaced on the international stage by other actors if the Trump administration continues to withdraw from international relations and foreign policy. Here is exactly what he said. I've got the whole clip if you guys want to come see it, ChristianTruth.com. In relation to other questions that you raised, it is clear for me, contrary to physics, in physics, there was an idea during many centuries that nature would not tolerate the void. But that idea proved wrong. It is possible to have vacuum in nature, but not in international relations. When someone is absent, or when someone doesn't engage in a situation, or when someone leaves space, that space is always occupied by others. And so I believe that if the United States disengages in relation to many aspects of foreign policy, international relations, it will be unavoidable, that other actors will occupy that space. And I don't think that this is good for the U.S., and I don't think that this is good for the world. In accordance with the Secretary General's statements and with the declarations made by Xi Jinping of China, it is increasingly evident that the United Nations, quote, vacuum or, quote, space left by the U.S. will be occupied by the communist nation of China. Let me just take you guys back a couple months ago when Xi Jinping was at Davos, proclaiming that he was going to fill the void of the United States and lead the New World Order, right? Okay, well, that's huge, because that's communism basically attempting to lead the supposedly democratic United Nations, but we know what it is. It's socialist, and it's, of course, more leaning towards communist. Since the founding of the United Nations, the international governing body has moved in one direction, towards socialism. Up until the Trump administration occupied the White House and the U.S. was aligned with the United Nations in moving in one direction, towards socialism. As the Trump administration took office, it would appear as though the U.S. is stepping back from that agenda. And there's a whole bunch of reasons why this is a part of it, and you don't even have to be pro-Trump to understand it. We're heading towards a multipolar world where there are several different superpowers that are equal to the U.S. We're heading there. We're not there yet, but we are heading there. Phase 3 of the multipolar world order. And the illusion that was created by us stepping back from the socialist agenda has created this vacuum, if you would, of we're doing the right thing, we're finally heading back to nationalism, when that's not true at all. Whether you believe it or not, as Trump has stated, I'm a globalist and a nationalist. That's a big problem. You cannot be both, because both contradict each other all the time. So anyways, as China takes its global seat, the goal of the United Nations becomes ever more evident. Communism, as Vladimir Lenin stated, the goal of socialism is actually communism. He says it's communism. I just added the actually. With the U.S. stepping back, it is evident that the world is increasingly becoming multipolar. Polarity in international relations is any of the various ways in which power is distributed within the international system. It describes the nature of the international system at any given period of time. One generally distinguishes four types of systems: unipolarity, bipolarity, tripolarity, and multipolarity, for four or more centers of power. The type of system is completely dependent on the distribution of power and influence of states in a region or globally. With China ready to occupy the, quote, void left by the United States, it is evident that a new world order is afoot, which just so happens to be what Xi Jinping called for back in February at the Davos Summit for the international elitists, and just after the Trump administration took office in January. Now, with all of that going on the international stage, we have to recognize what's going on internally in the U.S. Is unrest coming to the United States? Conservatives have been warned to prepare for approaching danger. Generally, the conservative disagrees with a liberal democratic order. However, that is the current structure of the world, and of course that is the current structure of the U.S. And we are challenging that actively and constantly, and of course we're seeing this dysfunction come from these little socialist commies that are running around. The congressional shooting that took place last week is potentially just the beginning of more violent outbursts to come from outraged, politically saturated, tolerant liberals. Now, of course, we must look past the left and right paradigm here. There is something sinister going on within this country, and at the end of this video, we'll go into the entire agenda. However, this turmoil is more than just left versus right, because as many have noticed, within the current political state of America, the Republican Party is also divided because of the current legally selected occupant in the White House, the President, Donald J. Trump. However, it's not just Washington hound dogs that are obsessed with the political outsider. Rather, so is the mainstream media and their followers. Since Trump took office in January, one can barely tell that we are halfway through his first year, because the media and the political left are all acting as though it's still November 2016. What can be understood by the refusal to accept that Trump is president is the fact that those who opposed Trump are actually traumatized by his victory. Now, wait, no. I'm not saying that they are victims of Trump, but in reality, this is called shock-based learning, and it's something that the elitists have used constantly throughout our society. Take 9/11, for example. That was shock-based learning. The repercussions of such can explain the division in America. For so many years, especially the 8 years under Obama, America was moving in one direction, left. Now it's a hard right. And of course, that is the appearance of what is going on. But if you want to learn more about shock-based learning, please become a member of the Christian Truther website. Go to christiantruther.com/info for more information. We've done an entire series on who is exactly conducting the shock-based learning. The refusal to accept reality has led to the creation of new terror groups such as Antifa. The people of these organizations have been indoctrinated with one ideology, and anything outside of their understanding is being treated as a threat to their lives, with the mainstream media fueling the flames. America used to be the land of agree to disagree, where two people can respect the humanity of that person, yet entirely disagree with every single thing they said, and carry on side by side. Just as you're not going to agree with everything I say, and that's totally okay. It's okay if we disagree on topics. We don't have to hate each other. You can still listen to our program, and of course, you can disagree with things we say. That is perfectly okay. We're not going to get everything right, number one. Number two, we're not going to agree on every topic. That's a utopia that doesn't exist. And if it does exist, it's because of indoctrination. America used to be the land of agree to disagree, where two people can respect the humanity of that person, yet entirely disagree with every single thing they said and carry on side by side. However, with the ever-polarizing shift that has taken place, the disagreements are getting out of hand. Why? Again, it comes back to humanity. For so long, America has had a moral compass. In large part, the morality of America was based on the Bible, and our country has followed that ever since. However, as of this generation and the one prior, Americans are being force-fed evolution. So wait, how does evolution have anything to do with politics? Evolution can be summed up into this line: you are not a human, you are just another animal. An increasing number of Americans believe this, and this in large part can explain why America has lost its moral compass. This in large part can explain why America is no longer the land of agreeing to disagree, but rather the land of I'm right, you're wrong, otherwise you're threatening my life and you're subhuman. The ideology of evolution is in direct opposition to creationism, where each human is special. And the second that is removed from our understanding is the second a tyrannical overreaching government can cull the herd. Why should conservatives be concerned? Because simply put, that I'm right and you're wrong ideology is silencing conservatives in public places. Christians are being thrown out of the public marketplace, and any speech the left opposes is labeled as hate speech. The tolerant left is overthrowing the First Amendment through their actions, and that will lead to civil war in America. And of course, as we can all tell, that is the constant concern of conservatives, of Christians. We can see the signs. I mean, if you don't see the signs of a brewing civil war, folks, wake up. The Trump administration says schools can be investigated for wrong pronoun use for transgender students. This is on Christian Post. Just in Canada the other day, you can be charged with a hate crime for using a wrong pronoun in whatever circumstance. In Canada, you can be legally charged with a hate crime for using the wrong pronoun. Now, what in the world is Trump doing, or the Trump administration doing? Because schools can be investigated for wrong pronoun use for transgender students. That sounds similar, except for it's not on the legally charged hate crime scale. It is, however, within schools. The Department of Education's Office of Civil Rights has issued an internal memo explaining that refusal by public schools or teachers to refer to a transgender student by his or her preferred pronoun or name could be grounds for an investigation. It was reported Friday that the Acting Assistant Secretary for Civil Rights, Candace Jackson, issued a memo on June 6th calling on the department's lawyers and investigators to consider complaints of discrimination by transgender students on a case-by-case basis. Although Attorney General Jeff Sessions and Education Secretary Betsy DeVos issued a joint memo in February that effectively rescinded last year's Obama administration guidance that called on schools to allow students access to bathrooms and locker rooms that are in accordance with their gender identity. The memo states that transgender students still have some valid discrimination complaints worthy of an OCR investigation. The memo lists a number of valid reasons why OCR investigators would be legally able to assert subject matter jurisdiction over and open for investigation, such as a school's failure to quickly and equitably resolve a transgender student's complaint of sex discrimination or treating a student different because of his or her failure to conform to stereotyped notions of masculinity or femininity. Additionally, an investigation could be had if there is failure to assess whether sexual harassment or gender-based harassment of a transgender student created a hostile environment. The memo lists certain actions that might be construed as gender-based harassment. That list includes refusing to use a transgender student's preferred name or pronouns when the school uses preferred names for gender-conforming students, or when the refusal is motivated by animus toward people who do not conform to sex stereotypes. We will be coming back to the transgender agenda in just a moment. We have a huge report on it that was just released. But for right now, Snap is developing a second version of Spectacles, which may include augmented reality. This continued drive towards a technologically enabled world, or an augmented world, if you would, or a virtual world, is going to create several issues. Number one, psychological. Snap extended the sale of its spectacles into Europe this month, but already the company is working on a second version of the video recording glasses, which could be quite radical, according to a source with knowledge of the plans. The first set of spectacles went on sale last year and are priced at $129. They allow their owner to take photos and videos, which can then be posted to the Snapchat service. The idea is to give users a way to create and share different types of content. The second generation project is closely guarded inside the company, to the point that few of Snap's 1,800 staff are aware of the product's details or when it will ship. Another source told TechCrunch, but we do understand, however, that the next version is billed as being quite different to the first-gen glasses. Although it isn't clear at this point exactly what that entails, it seems increasingly likely that the Spectacles 2, will ship with augmented reality features built in. This is not good. This constantly melding and mixing of technology, of these virtual worlds in our actual world, it's gonna construe the lines of what's real and what's fake. And we continually see this with politics and news. What's real and what's fake? I mean, how many times do we see this is fake news, this is fake news, this is real news? Regardless of if you're aware of the labels, it is still having a psychological effect. And it's devastating. Katy Perry sold her soul to the devil and so badly wants to recant her deal and return to faith. There has been quite a bit of controversy surrounding Katy Perry. Everything from her appearance at the Met Ball to shaving her head points to the fact that Katy is having a mental breakdown after wheeling and dealing within the music industry. Most of Katy's fans know that both of her parents are preachers, and she began her career as Katy Hudson with a gospel album. That's hard to believe, isn't it? That's really hard to believe, isn't it? We have seen stars like Britney Spears show all the signs that Katy Perry is showing. Unfortunately, Britney Spears, like many others, turned back to the industry and rededicated herself. There is no question that something is going wrong with Katy, as we have seen her literally serve herself on a platter while singing her song Bon Appetit, which references cannibalism. Katy has admitted that she turns to New Age practice and even Eastern mysticism, even once admitting that she sold her soul to the devil to obtain success in the music industry. In promotion of her album Witness, Katy had a 24-hour YouTube event. One part of the event, she featured a therapy session where she had a therapist talk candidly about Katy and her split personality with her young self, Catherine. Katy expressed her desire to return to Catherine, her 11-year-old Christian identity. Throughout her music, Katy has shown Catherine as a pure, innocent fighter, referencing her as her heart. We have the full interview available on our website, ChristianTruther.com. And of course, this is incredible to see how far she has gone. The devil comes to kill, steal, and destroy. And Catherine Hudson, the innocence of Katy Perry, who once created a gospel album, is totally gone, as you can see. The therapist begins the session saying, "So we're going to call you Catherine for a while, right?" It's like it's an ego almost, a second identity. Katy's going to take a rest. Okay, oh, thank you so much. That's what I'm trying to do, is be seen as Catherine Hudson sometimes. Well, a lot of times. When does Catherine get to come out and play, he asks. When I can just rest and fall and surrender. That's when Catherine gets to come out. As you can see here, it's a split identity. And as you can see here, it's pretty much evident of mind control. Make sure you head over to our website and check out that post. You've got to see this interview. Ladies and gentlemen, the fearmongers are at it again. Apocalypse warning. Experts say deadly heat wave may threaten 75% of mankind, and it might be too late. A new study shows that up to 30% of the world's population is exposed to deadly heat at least 20 days per year, according to National Geographic. Unless something is done, that number will grow, and by the year 2100, up to 75% of mankind could be threatened. What is causing this, and can disaster be prevented before it is too late? The study reveals that unless there is a major reduction in greenhouse gases. Now, of course, let's equate this here, like CO2. That means you and me. We exhale CO2. When they say they want to reduce greenhouse gases, that means coal people, because we emit them constantly. There are 8 billion people on this planet. We are the herd that they want to cull. 3 out of 4 people could die from extreme heat, considering that a percentage of the Earth's population is already being exposed. The website compared the deadly heat wave to a growing forest fire that is out of control. It was also noted that in the study published Monday in Nature Climate Change, that even if there is success in reducing the greenhouse gases, 1 out of 2 people will still die from insanely high temperatures by 2100. All of their estimates, all of their calculations that they've claimed in the past that we're done by now, they've all been wrong. We've seen countless times throughout the years their manipulated climate data that they keep pushing as, oh my goodness, this is the end. This is it. Climate change. We've got to reduce our greenhouse gases. We've got to do this. We've got to build this green energy revolution. And of course, that leads directly to the 4th industrial revolution. Now, we'll get into more of the 4th Industrial Revolution in just a minute here. But the Koch brothers want to rewrite the Constitution, and they may succeed. This is extremely, extremely concerning. The Wisconsin Assembly votes Wednesday on whether to call for a convention to change the U.S. Constitution. While that in itself is surprising, the American people have never exercised their legally enshrined right to convene a new constitutional convention. What's more surprising is that pro-business groups with ties to the Koch brothers have pushed for similar legislation in more than 30 states. And they've been remarkably successful. A dozen states have passed bills calling for a convention that would produce an altered constitution that would likely limit federal spending power. According to Article 5 of the Constitution, just 2/3 or 34 of the 50 state legislatures need to call for a convention for the purposes of proposing constitutional amendments. No governor's signature is required. Those amendments would then need to be ratified by 3/4 of the states, currently 38, to become law. But beyond those very basic requirements, nobody knows what the rules for a convention would be, since one hasn't occurred since the original in 1787. That single instance, constitutional law experts warn, provides a harrowing precedent. Delegates tore up the Articles of Confederation they had convened to improve and produced a whole new governing document. Can we all understand the ramifications that could come from a constitutional convention? First of all, the Supreme Court just ruled that under the First Amendment, hate speech is still free speech. If they rule for a constitutional convention, free speech, the First Amendment, and so on and so forth. That could all be changed. Let's go into this LA Times article for a second here. Given today's politics, who could be sure that nothing crazy would be successfully proposed and quite possibly ratified? Conventioneers could employ the age-old practice of log rolling to get their way, combining a conservative proposal such as the balanced budget mandate with a liberal one, such as gun control, into a single amendment. No matter how bad or messy the resulting law, 7 of our existing 27 amendments contain at least 2 quite different provisions. And even if a con didn't hijack the ratification process, a problematic amendment, the authority to suspend the First Amendment for national security reasons, say, could still linger indefinitely, only to get pushed over the top by a perceived national crisis or the rise of a demagogue. The 27th Amendment was ratified 2 centuries after being proposed to the states. Romantics imagined that a constitutional convention would be a way of taking government back from the politicians. Yet the delegates are likely to be chosen by state legislators, who presumably would select themselves. The representatives you love to hate now, not Madison, Hamilton, Franklin, and Washington, would get the chance to revamp the Constitution. And if that doesn't scare you, consider what Supreme Court Chief Justice Warren Burger pointed out in 1988. A convention would quickly be saturated in money from special interests seeking to lock their priorities into the Constitution for all time. Do we see how dangerous this could actually be? This is epic. Now, let's go back to the Yahoo article. For the country to continue spending at this rate, where revenues are exceeding expenditures consistently, it is not sustainable. He said, whether it's Democrats or Republicans in charge in Washington, it's not getting fixed, and no solutions are being proposed to deal with it. I think this is the only option left. But while proponents of this kind of legislation say that Congress is incapable of reining in a nearly $20 trillion national debt, opponents believe that the Article 5 movement is an astroturf effort backed by corporate interests that would eliminate environmental and labor regulatory bodies and slash taxes and spending by forcing the federal government to drastically reduce its reach. Now, of course, they're saying slash environmental or all these other regulatory bodies, but no one's really talking about what would happen to our freedoms, our rights. This is why I brought in that LA Times article because, we could lose our First Amendment because of quote-unquote national security reasons. We could lose our Second Amendment because of quote-unquote national security reasons. Who knows what could take place under a constitutional convention? Such hasn't happened since the 1700s. I mean, this is catastrophic. This is catastrophic. How many times are we recognizing that the Constitution is keeping us free? It's what sets us apart as a country, and they're trying to take that away. Moving on from that bombshell, doctor says insurance companies declined to pay for patients' treatments, but offered assisted suicide coverage. No, this is not in another country. This is in America. A doctor in Nevada says that insurance companies have now twice declined to pay for patients' life-saving treatments, but offered to cover assisted suicide. Dr. Brian Callister, professional of internal medicine at the University of Nevada, shared his story in a recently released video produced by the Patients' Rights Action Fund. He explained that he sought to transfer 2 patients out to obtain procedures that are not provided at his hospital. On both occasions, the 2 separate insurance companies declined coverage, as they desired transfer locations were in states where assisted suicide is legal. The representatives presented the option. I had 2 different patients, and both needed life-saving procedures, he explained. When requesting a transfer to a center in their home states, one is in California, one is in Oregon, the insurance medical directors I spoke with said they would not cover the life-saving procedure that we requested. But, hey, by the way, have you considered assisted suicide? Where is America going? Assisted suicide? The U.S. military shot down an Iranian-made drone in southern Syria. The U.S. military said it shot down an Iranian-made armed drone in southern Syria on Tuesday, marking the 3rd time this month that the U.S. has downed aircraft affiliated with the Syrian President Bashar Assad's government. So, of course, this right here is we're going back to Syria. We're expanding our campaign in Syria according to several White House officials, as we all know how bad this is going to get. Something is still brewing with Syria. This is why we're still there. This is why we're still in the country. This place has the possibility to start World War III. We'll see how this expanding campaign plays out. But on the brighter side, we have some good news, folks. The State Department probes Clinton handling of government emails, could pull her security clearance. Now, this was posted on June 20th, 2017. The State Department has opened a formal inquiry into whether former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and her aides mishandled classified information while she was the nation's top diplomat, Fox News has learned. Despite being under investigation, Clinton and her staffers still have security clearances to access sensitive government information. The department's investigation aims to determine whether Clinton and her closest aides violated government protocols by using her private server to receive, hold, and transmit classified and top-secret government documents. The department declined to say when its inquiry began, but it follows the conclusion of the FBI's probe into the matter, which did not result in any actions being taken against Clinton or any of her aides. Depending on the outcome of the current State Department inquiry, Clinton and her aides could have their access to sensitive government documents terminated. Senate Judiciary Committee Chair Chuck Grassley confirmed Fox News the department's formal inquiry. Meanwhile, Grassley's committee launched its own inquiry into Clinton's handling of emails, an inquiry that began in March. Grassley cited among his concerns the July 5th statement of former FBI Director James Comey that the agency found Clinton and her staff members were extremely careless in their handling of very sensitive, highly classified information. Grassley also contended there is evidence of potential violations of the statutes regarding the handling of classified information. So here we are again, back at the Clinton scandal. But hopefully, this time, something actually comes out of it. Something has got to come out of this. They are criminals. How can an FBI director, who is supposedly an independent body from politics, which we know is a lie, take advice from Loretta Lynch, changing it from an investigation into a matter? This whole thing is fishy. And of course, as we just learned with Seth Rich, it was not a random killing. And that, of course, came out because forensic psychologists published an 83-page report about the murder, detailing that it was either done by a serial killer or it was a hit job. A man is now in custody after Bishop Airport stabbing identified as Canadian resident Amor. I'm not even going to try with the last name. One person is in custody and being questioned after an airport police officer was stabbed at Flint's Bishop Airport at around 9:30 a.m. Wednesday. The FBI is investigating the incident as a possible act of terrorism. A massive investigation now underway by several law enforcement agencies across the state, headed up by the FBI. The man in police custody has been identified as 50-year-old Amor, a Canadian citizen. He illegally entered the country on June 16th in New York. He arrived at Bishop Wednesday morning. Special Agent in Charge David Galeas says Amor yelled Allah Akbar before stabbing Lieutenant Jeff Neville. Galeas says Amor said something to the effect of, "You have killed people in Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan. We're all going to die." There were dozens of people in the airport at the time of the incident. Traffic has now resumed at the airport. And for tonight's special report, the LGBT agenda will bring about transhumanism and artificial wombs. This isn't coming from me. This is coming from a 1971 homosexual manifesto in London. The ever-increasing reality that the LGBT movement is the tool of an agenda to destroy the family model and create an environment where transhumanists and technologists thrive is not a new idea. Rather, it was declared in a homosexual manifesto from 1971. This was a published manifesto. The radical document, which is a declaration of war against the morality of mankind, proclaims the end goal of a genderless dystopia, all made possible by the ever-increasing technological advances of society. Thus, the document brought about in 1971 aligns the ideology and timing of both the sexual devolution we are currently witnessing and the transhumanist movement that is brewing in the shadows of the LGBT movement. The fourth industrial revolution is the transhumanist movement. Side by side, the agenda of the LGBT has operated in collusion with the technological revolutions. While the mainstream organizers of the LGBT agenda may yet be clueless to the intentions of their leaders, this document lays bare the absolute intentions of the demoralizing agenda: to bring to an end the human and bring about the transhuman. Over and over again, the World Economic Forum has depicted that what comes in the next industrial revolution, also known as the Fourth Industrial Revolution, will be, instead of mankind creating better tools, man himself will become the tool. The manifesto, I've got it on the website on this particular report. Go to ChristianTruther.com, and it's the first report you'll see. Gay Liberation Front Manifesto, London, 1971, revised 1978. In addition to the aforementioned, out of the several things mentioned in the above manifesto, I mean, there is so much. There is so much. There's just so much in this document. There's no way to fit it all into even one video. In addition to the aforementioned, out of the several things mentioned in the above manifesto, one stark point is outlined: the destruction of the patriarchal family. They're going after the family. Ever since mankind was created, a profound structure has driven the population growth of this planet. 8 billion people live here. 8 billion people live here. Think about the magnitude of that. 8 billion people. And more to come. And that is marriage between one man and one woman. Any deviation from that, and what ensues is destruction upon that society, whether it be immediate destruction or inevitable destruction. Why, you might ask? Because the structure of a family, with the man leading and the woman right beside him, is what God intended when He created Adam and Eve. Eve was taken from Adam's rib, not from his feet, where she would be below him, and not from his head, where she would be above him, rather from his side, so she is beside him. When a family deviates from this structure, the family model is out of balance. Take America, for example. America was once a prosperous nation, dominating the world. Now as society turns on its head, the structure, that balance, that led this nation forth is distraught, and such is evident in our culture and our society. Even though the destruction of the family model entirely may seem to be a far stretch, consider what is taking place in American society today. Divorce rates are up to almost 50%. In addition, this is affecting the next generation, which is being raised by a dysfunctional culture and a brainwashing education system. In accordance with Scripture, lawlessness has arrived. For a visual representation of what is taking place in America today, consult the latest video by Jason A., a Christian videographer on YouTube. We've got that video posted on our website as well. The fourth, as declared in the document provided above, the LGBT agenda needs technology to aid in the destruction of the sociological structure. The manifesto, written over 40 years ago, expressly references the need for artificial wombs, such of which are in headlines today. Just last month in April, there was quite a few headlines about artificial wombs. The latest publication stemming from the scientific community in regards to artificial wombs was made public in April, and such announced the successful birthing of a baby sheep. According to the researchers, humans could be next. While speaking to The Verge, the researchers claim that the biobag, the artificial womb, will be used specifically for infants that are born months too early. The biobag could provide a more natural environment for the undeveloped baby to continue development. However, as stated over 40 years ago, we know the end goal. To get past the ethics and moral department, scientists and researchers will exclaim that the biobag will aid the children that were born months too soon, and after a while, suddenly the biobags can be used during the entirety of the pregnancy. Scientists and doctors alike will attempt to bring about the use of the artificial wombs because roughly 10% of babies born in the U.S. are born premature. All the while, some of those same doctors will turn a blind eye to the 200,000 babies that are murdered each and every single year in the U.S. 200,000 unborn babies are murdered each and every single year. Bridging the gap entirely between humanity and technology creates an utterly nightmarish scenario. Not only would the culture consist of superhumans, designer babies, and or genetically modified babies, the inevitable would take place. One class would rule the other, and typically it would be those with the most money, power, and influence that sought the genetically altered alternative to natural childbirth, leading to the enslavement of the uninitiated. Understanding the entire agenda. It's not just about homosexuals and transgenders. Just hang on. It was never about homosexuals or transgenders, or any of the biologically confused folk. Rather, combining technology with humanity is the goal. Such is evident by the dominance of tech giants in the social construct of our modern-day societies, thus creating something far more nefarious than previously imagined, and far more deadly than that of communism in the 19th and 20th centuries. The end goal is a technocracy, based on the political model of communism, except technologists are the working class, distracted by the illusion of freedom through the computer screen, and technocrats that make up the ruling elite. To obtain said goal, consider how communism is resurfacing in our society today. And of course, within the bottom of this video is that short film on communism and the 45 goals. I urge you to please check out that report, because that way you can see the manifesto. It was stated clearly in 1971 what the end goal was. There was another homosexual manifesto that we've mentioned on this show before. And of course, that one was far more, graphic. But this one right here literally attacks the family model, the patriarchal family. It lays bare the evidence that technology is the tool that they're going to use to entirely subvert our society. Even with all of this, There is a profound concern over the next generation. If you're not concerned about the kids of today, let me read you this. Gender-confused kids are being experimented on with hormone therapy. Their hormones, their developmental hormones, are being played with. This is according to experts. A new report written by 3 well-respected medical experts and scholars questions the safety and effectiveness of pressuring gender-confused children to undergo radical and experimental puberty-blocking hormone therapy, even though the treatment and its side effects haven't yet been adequately researched by the science and medical communities. The new report, Growing Pains, Problems with Puberty Suppression and Treating Gender Dysphoria, was published by quarterly journal The New Atlantis on Tuesday. It argues that while puberty suppression therapy through hormone intervention is increasingly being recommended for children with gender dysphoria, and at younger ages, there is little evidence that shows that puberty suppression is reversible, safe, or effective for treating gender dysphoria. Psychologists do not understand what causes gender dysphoria in children and adolescents, or how to distinguish reliably between children who will only temporarily express feelings of being the opposite sex from children whose gender dysphoria will be more persistent. Until much more is known about gender dysphoria, and until controlled clinical trials of puberty suppression are carried out, this intervention should be considered experimental, the report states. Regardless of the good intentions of the physicians and parents, to expose young people to such treatments is to endanger them. How many kids across this land are confused? Kids have literally no idea. I mean, we as a society are expecting children to make a decision for the rest of their life at 2 years old, sometimes at 4, sometimes at 7. Are you kidding me? I mean, that is absurd. And allowing parents that are totally brainwashed and saturated into one ideology to raise those children and then, of course, to submit them to such experiments. That's what they are, experiments. That's almost child abuse. We must pray and do our best to aid the next generation. Because right now, as we can see, that's where the main assault by culture is on. With that, I want to thank you all for watching and listening. Please support The Christian Truther by going to christiantruther.com/support. I want to thank you all for tuning in to tonight's Wire. God bless you, and carry on. Thanks for tuning in to this episode. Make sure you download our free mobile apps available on Apple and Android. We are viewer funded. Support The Christian Truther by going to christiantruther.com/info for more information.